Hello and welcome, ladies and gents, back to the channel or channels, respectively. We're going to be going through that of ESL Pro League Group C and D. Now, we did this for Group A and B, and so far, for the most part, we've been right. The only real notable one off the top of my head, a ton of fire going out pretty early. That was the one that we were like, we think this team will make it through. They lost at the time of recording like 2 hours ago to Saw 2-0. Tough to see, but by that, for the most part, we've been pretty spot on in terms of where, like, what teams are going through, not where they're going through. You know, phase,
Sure.
classic phase, not showing up in the groups, or the be all and end all of phase, right? They just never show up until it matters most. But week one of Pro League Groups A and B done. We were on the B stream. Half. How do you find it?
Yeah, good man. Yeah, it was good. It's still a few sort of teething issues and whatnot. But ultimately all good. I was cursed today. I don't know what happened. My internet kicked off. My mixer like died. The mixer was kind of my fault to be fair because I've like moved it a little bit and it just it wasn't that
Fix
much though.
itself.
I
Yeah.
still I still profess it really wasn't like an aggressive movement. So I was a little bit cursed today. Next week I'm not going to be touching anything. I'm going to be static, just not moving, same
Yeah.
position all day long. But yeah, it's good, man. It's lovely to be on. It's a great product to be a part of. Loads of
Is.
Counter Strike
Yeah.
going on. The storylines are always fantastic in Pro League. Anyone
Mhm.
can win it. It's got that laid back vibe, and some of the bigger teams get caught up in that. You've just been on the other side of the world doing Chengdu or whatever. You come over here, you have a bit of a slower start, and that can be okay. Maybe if you are FaZe, maybe if you are VP, but there are a few
Yeah.
teams in there, a G2, a Falcons, where it's like you have to hit the ground running because otherwise, you might end up running into one of those teams that also started slowly. So
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
good fun to be part of a product like this.
Exactly that. What we can do is go straight in towards our topics about this time groups C and D. Now, similar format, similar everything to what you guys have been used to over in A and B. So we'll kind of skip all of that with the three stages. You know how it works. You get three chances. You get the group itself, then the mid bracket or like the lower bracket, quote unquote, and then the last chance coming through. So in ESL, we call it the mid bracket and the last chance. HTV call it the lower and then last chance. So simple as that, right? So basically you get 3 lives. Nice and simple. There's obviously two spots for the uppers. Whoever makes it through, it's fine. It's just a seeding thing then for those two guys who make it to the upper final. One team makes it for the lower, and then one team makes it for the last chance. So 4 teams in total make it through each group, meaning in total at playoffs we'll have 16. Nice and easy. So let's get things started talking about Group C. This is for us. We will be on for next week. We'll be on the morning game. Well, I think the morning is. We'll be on the
Yeah,
earlier
like the
games.
early
Morning,
shift.
12:30,
Yeah,
not morning. Esports morning, normal,
sure.
very much not morning. First game, Miles at Bad News Eagles, and then ends Gamer Legion. Now, for coming in towards these early ones, very much done on seeding, right? Most of them are meant to be blowouts, and they're meant to be quite one-sided. And that Miles Bad News, no, Bad News Kangaroos
Mm,
should be
mm.
pretty, should be a bit of a decimation. Should be.
Yeah, you would assume so. I'm gonna be real, I'll put a little bit of work in. We're casting a fair bit. I think domestically they're doing okay, but the bad news Kangaroos guys, I don't know any of these players. Usually there is a player or two within the oceanic region that I might
Yeah.
recognize. Maybe it's like an old guard guy that you've seen at international tournaments doing well. But these guys, I think, behind FlyQuest are the second team at the moment. It feels like if you just
They
look
are,
down
yeah.
the run of where it's going. Obviously their Challenger League is still a little bit different. They're still working on like BO1s and stuff, not straight into BO3s and things like this. But yeah, they look like a pretty solid team domestically, and credit to them. They just narrowly miss out on EWC recently to FlyQuest, but
Yeah.
ultimately they've done well to get here. But I think that this is going to be a really tough. It's one of those types of scenarios where we look at them similar to the way that we look at Sharks when in our other groups there. Little, I don't want to say lucky getting in necessarily. Of course,
Mhm.
it still takes a great deal of work, but unexpected for sure.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to work pretty hard. If they can take a map, I think is what I'm getting at here. If they can take a map off of an opponent, then maybe we'd be in. Well, no, not maybe. We would be impressed by that, especially if you run into
Yeah.
a Mouse like this group. Actually, if they take a map off any team in this group, maybe Fours is the only one that I would look at it a little bit questioning. But everybody
Okay.
else, I'd be like, that is fair play because they're pretty decent teams within this group.
Do you know, I think, not giving that much credit, they're not a bad team. I've caught these guys on LAN a couple of times, especially the likes of Brace, Hazard, Addict. I think this was way before when I was covering this team. They were under a different name. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was like ESL Challenger Melbourne last year. I think PZ was there as well. Damio wasn't. I can't remember who was in the team before. But Damio's new to me. The other four I've caught on LAN, working the desk. Brace the IGL. Alex, obviously, numbers wise, you can see, is the main guy to look for. Hazard pops off when he wants to. And PZ does have his moments, but he's a little inconsistent. I think with how things currently are, I actually think they could get a map off of Fours, Monty, and Gamer Legion. That's like,
Okay.
but I think that's also probably because I also think Fours, Monty, and Gamer Legion are pretty shit right now. I think they're like,
Yeah, that's fair
like
enough.
Monty are pretty poor. They're actually not even pretty poor. They're very poor right now. They look all over the place. It's like if Warrior doesn't drop like a 1.2 rating, they're kind of like shit in the bed. Gizmy's actually look really good, but then outside of that, it's like Ryu either drops 30 or 10 in a map. There's no in between. Um, like Demka can be like occasionally like non-existent, but then occasionally one of the best players in the server. And same with Krasnal. I think this team is in such flux. Monty, I honestly think they're just biding time. I don't think this is the roster they want to commit to, because if it is, I don't really think they're going to be in and around the upper echelon for a while. Fours, obviously, this is quite literally just a temporary roster as well for them. Smooya playing with Shalfie, Tanier, Celta, and Nickelback is fucking wild. Like, actually wild. How this has happened, I don't know.
It's
Why
because
they've
they just play
chosen.
FPL with him, probably.
Yeah, but
And
why
they're a
they've
little bit
chosen an English
desperate.
guy
And
rather
he'd
than like a
probably.
Russian guy to then like come with in like in a bet, you know what I mean? Like for
Who
me, like
knows?
I mean, obviously maybe also a visa issue as well,
Were
right?
there?
Because it comes with
I might
plastic.
be like making this up. This might be serious mental gymnastics going on. But were there
Go on.
rumors at one point that Smooya was going to join Fours anyway, like under Jerry? Or am I might just be
Do you know?
going
It doesn't actually
mental.
sound the most outlandish, but from my, I always remember that
Let's
team
see if it's
being
on the news.
Russian
I'm looking
speaking.
down the news.
Uh,
Let me give it a control F and a Fours. All right, there's
I
nothing on here, mate.
guess, yeah. No, I think for me, like the only thing that maybe like, goes against that is like just the fact that they were always Russian speaking. So, but then of course this team is four Russians and then Smuya. So I don't know, wild. It'd be quite funny to see Smuya do well. It actually really would. Just like,
There's a
this is
world
a
in which he
guy.
does though, because I just don't think people will be like ready. People are not going to respect him. He's not going to respect them. So I feel
Yeah.
like that he might have like a half or two where he plays really well, and people just aren't paying him
Also,
any attention. You know?
let's be honest, he was never a bad player ever. He was actually always a very
Yeah,
good AWPer. He
yeah,
was just, no offense to him, at times a bit apparently very difficult to work with.
sure.
Is how we'll go about it. Yeah, very difficult to work with. Is
It checks out.
what, yeah, what comes out from the team. However, not that it really says a big story, but this guy, see that 1.44, he's farming Epic Lands, mate. Like
Yeah,
Epic
yeah.
Land playoffs, he's dropping like 1.9s, like most finals. Um, yeah, I don't know, quite interesting. Monty, I think, are in a real weird place. They are all over the place. Like I said, it's very much down to Ryu. That one, I don't think we even need to really talk about who we kind of predict there. It's like whatever, you know what I mean? It's such a
Bro,
non-existent.
I've not got a clue. I can't give you a straight answer. You know what
I
I
would
mean?
say
There is.
Monty.
I genuinely in that game. I think there is a world in which Smooya just farms everybody because I
Yeah,
feel like Monty are going to have a bit of pressure on them to perform. The
yeah,
Fours
yeah,
side, meanwhile, I think they might just have some fun with it. To be
yeah.
honest, with
No,
where the
exactly.
temporary team is at, and Smooya's got a bit of an attitude about him. Maybe they can work with that. Some of the guys on this team a little bit younger than him. Um, and who knows? Who knows? Smooya is having a good time streaming, decent numbers there. Don't know whether he'll come back to pro play, but this is just another sort of marketing move, isn't it? I don't think that's the
That's it.
sole
Yeah,
the sole reason behind it. Don't get me wrong. I think
yeah,
he obviously loves competing, but it will work out like that. There'll be some funny moments. He's gonna try and knife some people.
yeah,
Either that, or he will just absolutely ruin everybody, and we're all gonna be like, "What the hell?"
yeah.
Um,
I think he is like a player who can still play at like like a high tier 2 level. Like I watch him play FPL. He is mechanically head and shoulders above many. I don't think there's any like conversations about that. I just think it's maybe do the teams want to like, if he is difficult to work with, that is, if there's any kind of basis behind this, do they really want to take the risk on him, like maybe putting the team in a bit of flux or anything along those lines, right? It'd be cool to get an interview with him. I think like if we ever cover a Fours game and they win,
Sure. I could
I
see
think
that.
I think of like
He's
get
got to be
into
well
and see what he
behaved.
says.
He's got to be well behaved because
Yeah, but it's not on us if he isn't. You know what I mean?
That is true.
a
That
win.
is true.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not going to go into it too much. But the last Epic LAN
Mm.
he was at, they very nearly banned him. So
Oh yeah, I mean I think there was an HTV news article about that. But like mid game, for those who don't know, just context wise, mid game he just stood up and looked at the screen.
Oh yeah, there was that, but also his conduct like at the event
yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
sort of behind the scenes. Like I'm not gonna. It's rumor mill, it's Chinese whispers, all this kind of stuff. But as far as I'm aware, they were not very happy, and I know for a fact because I was there that the final was like delayed because Gump, who's like head honcho of tournament operations at Epic LAN, sort of took him aside and was like, listen man, you're a patron, a paying guy like everybody else, but like, can we keep it reasonable, please? And to be fair to him, they were obviously giving it large when they won a round, but to be fair, they weren't too bad when they were on stage.
And they did reverse sweep, I'm pretty sure. So like, like fair play. There's a bit of content. Let's talk about some real teams though. This game of Legion. For me, this looks like Ents every other week. I don't really rate this game of Legion team at the moment. I think there's definitely grounds there though. Slend is unbelievable. This kid is such a good talent. Like I don't think many people would kind of debate or deny that. He is like seriously good. For me, I really think he can step up. And I think Andu, since coming towards the team, has actually looked really crisp. The only issue I actually have with what I've caught, so I caught Game of Legion in Thunderpick, I think once, and then something else. I can't remember exactly what it was. I've caught them twice, basically, since Andu and Slend have come in. And basically, Slend, very talented, does his roles really well. Andu, very talented. However, Andu always looks a little lost. I don't know whether they've like not set him up into his positions properly, but he always looks like he's kind of being caught off guard or like he's being killed from behind when he thinks his teammate's holding for him. So small things like that, which, I mean, I think it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks since I caught them. You'd hope they'd basically spend some time pracking and getting ready for this tournament, fixing those things. We'll have to see. I think the big thing for me that I do want to see though is just a little bit more out of Isaac. Isaac's meant to be very important to this team, in terms of the numbers department, and he's actually looked a little weak. So I do want to see him, as actually technically an experienced head in this team. He's more experienced than Volt and Slend, right? He's like technically the second man in terms of this team. I do want to see him try and showcase that a bit, his experience and knowledge of the game. But for me, I think Ents take this pretty comfortably. This team, I still really love them, despite the early departure at the major. I think Ents are really cool.
Yeah, and Ents are a lot of fun. They've obviously shown us a pretty high ceiling. They have to get behind Glaive. I think Glaive is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of just outbraining opponents and also outfragging, apparently, for a little period there. We don't see too much events. They're not a super busy team at the moment, so I think that is obviously something that might get away from them. They did play off in the Sky Esports Masters, a little bit of a weird event in the end. Not a great finish for them. I'm pretty sure 7th, 8th in that. We were casting at the time, so it's a bit hard to follow, but 7th, 8th I think is last. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think there was, I think it was top. I think it was 8 teams.
So not a fantastic performance there. That's what I mean. Like, it was going to be a LAN, then it was sort of online. I don't really know what the logistics were behind that in the end. I guess they're just playing from home, but, they lose out to Forza and OG there, I'm reading here, which is not ideal. But again, playing online Counter-Strike, something, especially for Glaive, that he's not going to be too familiar with, and how to call against these kind of teams. There is a ceiling there. The only thing that I will say, actually just sort of rolling through and looking here, I think a lot of Kato comes down to the fact that it's just like hometown advantage, and those 4 boyos really trying their hearts out. Players like Hades, a little bit of D-Har, but a lot Hades for me, I think, are very mental players. I've seen Hades make some wild plays when the pressure's on, when the nerves get to him. and I think it's something that he certainly struggles with. And he's a big part of this team. Definitely moves that have got to be made for Ents for them to be impressive. In my opinion, I think they maybe have a ceiling. Maybe an event like Pro League again, where and in this group, to be honest, where it
You
is a bit
reckon?
more laid back, they might be able to make a little bit of a deeper run. I think they should
Okay,
make
yeah.
playoffs. I think they should win this game against Gamer Legion. Gamer Legion on the flip, to give my thoughts on them, it's like a very difficult team to really predict because as an organization, they're a smaller organization. You know, they have fingers in lots of pies, lots of different games, but generally like sort of cheaper games, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
PUBG. I think they've got
Or
a
like
relatively decent team.
Trackmania.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
Yeah.
like where they have representation. Obviously, they will have made a good deal of money from stickers, but mainly just from the revenue share. I don't think that their stickers will go crazy. You know what I mean? Who's out here buying I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but you know, I mean, who's naming the buying the Game of Legion stickers specifically? You know, probably not too many people. To be fair, there weren't a great deal of names, and compared to the Apex boys that have gone on to find great success, I think Immer, yes, he's won the major and he's a great role player, but he wasn't the best looking player. I suppose he was at the Paris major, so I don't know. It
Yeah.
like there's a lot in the Gamer Legion team, but I think what ultimately being a smaller org, they got a bit lucky. They made some decent money, but they can't just splurge all that money because they
It's
don't
true.
necessarily have a solid stream of revenue. So therefore, what you have to do, and I think they will be well versed in this, in particular, similar to an endpoint, for example, you have to pick up some riskier players. Hope that you can,
Yeah.
you know, younger players that aren't going to demand as much money, not as well decorated, and just hope that you know your pieces can make it work. And a key part behind that is Ash and his sort of scouting, his ability as a coach. We, you know, all praise that video that he put out. He's obviously got a great mind for the game, but sometimes it doesn't quite work. I think, like you're saying, they look good, but not quite yet. You know, again, there's another
Yeah.
move somewhere that has to happen, or there's a big switch within this team that has to happen. But for me, they did really well at the Paris Major, and they've just been like riding that for the past 8 months or whatever it is now, more to be fair, like 10 months. And I don't know that they've really impressed me very much since then, to be honest.
The credit I'll give Gamer Legion is I think, you know, if you think of the 4 teams that rode the Blast Paris Major that weren't expected, so we're talking Into the Breach, Gamer Legion, Apex, and Monty.
Yeah,
I would say they're actually the best off of all the 4 now.
it's true. It's
Apex
true.
are, no offense, they are absolutely shit right now. They are like, they're horrible. They're like so rough to watch. Like, there is rumors. I can't remember who it was. Stico is being replaced. I saw it.
Oh, it might be official, you know. I swear I've seen it down as an
I
official
saw
tweet.
it.
Let
Yeah,
me.
maybe you are right. I sent this to my mate the other day.
I'm being chill
Oh
here, so I'll give it a search and it'll be on screen. Sent? No,
no,
no.
Stico's
Stico's
been
still
replaced.
listed. Stico is
Yeah,
still
no,
listed
no.
on
Let me
HLTV.
find it. Let me find it. I'll get it. I'll get it.
There was
Uh,
definitely a pretty legitimate claim
oh my god, who
being
was it?
made.
Who was it?
I don't think it
I'm
was
gonna
one of the
find it.
blokes, mate. Is it not Overdrive? Is it?
No, I don't think it was Overdrive. I'm trying to
Yeah,
find
that's
who
what
it
I'm
was.
saying. I
I
don't
spoke
think it's
about
one of the
this.
blokes.
I'm spamming. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Ultex is set to replace Sent, and this is by actually a very like legitimate reporter. This guy's
Stico, you
got
mean? Alltech set to
yeah.
replace Stico.
Ultex is replacing Stico. Is
Yeah,
the
yeah.
rumor?
Okay.
Is the rumor? I think this guy Alejandro Gomez. He's actually like pretty legit. He's got like 75,000 followers. He's like yeah, he's like he's a big kind of like not like he's not like a leaker
Yeah, right, right.
like a fucking Harumi, which is like
Yeah,
just
and
makes
the
it up and just like
Overdrive guy.
yeah. Well, I think Overdrive at least has some
Overdrive's again up
legitimacy.
there. He's a few rungs above, but he's still not quite
Yeah,
a journalist.
like
You
Harumi just
know.
makes it up and hopes it sticks. Like at least like Overdrive, I feel like has some knowledge behind him. Or I think you know for the most part he seems okay. I mean he called like most of the Cloud9 stuff prior to it happening, but like by a day or whatever. Um, but yeah, it's one of those. So yeah, like you know that's what I mean. Like so of all the 4, back to what I was saying, Into the Breach, literally not even in Counter Strike anymore. They've left Counter Strike. So boom, there's one gone. Monty are all over the place, like I've already spoken about, with 2 academy guys coming through. Gizzy's actually been pretty good. Ryu is kind of like iffy. And this team just looks rough. They're pretty tough to watch. Um, and then Apex are just shit. So like it's one of those where I think it's like actually Game Legion of the 4, like fair play, they've actually get themselves afloat. I think a large majority of that is down to Snacks and Ash. I just think like they're just so level headed. They're just never gonna let shit just go completely out of there. Like if changes need to be made, they'll make them. You know what I mean? Like they're very on it, very quick. And I think credit to them. Like Acor is a big person to cut, right? You know what I mean? Like granted, he had his moments at the Blast Press Major. Since then, very up and down. It's a big person to cut, but I think their idea of why they've gone for it and bringing in Slend is absolutely spot on. He is just wonder kid. I said it at the start of the year. Neo's bold predictions, man. I put him like 3 or 4. Kid's mega talented. So yeah. But last one we'll talk about Fury Liquid. Talking about shit teams. Fury Liquid. This is American derby of 2 teams who are currently on a incredibly vast downward trend. Liquid, Esports World Cup lost to M80, but obviously we know M80 at the moment. What I would say second best team in NA right now, behind Complexity, obviously. Liquid have looked pretty woeful, haven't they? I mean, Cadian doesn't look that great. Are you disagreeing?
No, I'm just looking down the results. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the EWC. Why are they playing M80 twice in a row
Yeah, so
with no other games in between?
no, so M80 played Legacy in between.
Ah, okay, okay.
So M80, so it went Liquid, lost to Liquid, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah,
and
Legacy,
then
yeah.
beat M80, beat Legacy, sorry, in like a lower bracket, I think it was, and then it was like
Right, okay.
grand final for the 1 spot against Liquid, and
Okay,
they
well
2-0'd them.
that's a bit rough, but that's
Yeah,
how it goes. Credit to
wait,
M80, solid comeback, I suppose.
yeah.
Solid
Liquid
bounce
for
back.
me though, I've looked really like pretty woeful. Like you look at like uh the thing is actually I'm gonna say Cadian. Like Cadian has looked a little rough in terms of his not only just calling but his AWPing, but it is actually all your Kindar. Like you hate to say it, but like this guy is all
Yeah.
over the place. I don't know what's happened.
He's just lost his identity, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like he's having to play like we talked about this a little bit, I think, going into was it Chengdu? Like after we did a
yeah,
little
I think
Chengdu
so.
video.
Yeah,
Um yeah, he's just lost his identity. He IGL'd for a bit, which was probably like the worst career decision he's ever made, to be honest.
yeah,
And way too much respect from like the players on the Liquid team to let him do that.
like do it.
Maybe
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
adamant on it. Maybe it was part of his contract somewhere that he wanted to try that and they had to let him do it if he was going to join the
Mm,
team. Who knows? But now he kind of has to play everybody else's Counter Strike. He doesn't get to play Yakindar's Counter Strike. You
yeah.
know, like he was like this free reign player on VP, one of the best guys to watch in 2021 for sure.
One of the most relentless entry fraggers like in the
Yeah,
world,
so
right?
fun, so fun. And after he left, like James obviously has tightened his grip on the sort of Jane time and all this kind of stuff. Yukindar, unfortunately, maybe a negative part for VP and not what James wanted to do, not in the vision that James had.
Mm.
And then yeah, since joining Liquid, I don't know, it's just we were all very excited, and then he's IGLing while like Nitro's still on the team. It was just a mess. It was really just a
It
mess,
was.
to be honest. And yeah, I think he's just lost his identity and he's kind of forgotten. Well, I don't know that it's forgotten how to play. Like, I just don't think he's allowed to do that anymore,
Yeah.
because he's dropped down and he didn't come into Liquid and just take over. And he should have
Yeah.
absolutely shat on the NA scene. And then when it
Yeah.
came to the international games, been a big proponent of them winning games and threatening for trophies. But they just have never had that. And I think now that the respect that he might have had coming into the team and the players that let him IGL and stuff like this, that's not there anymore. If he says, "Yeah, just let me do my own thing, man. I'm crazy with it." It's like
No,
he's
mate.
not
No.
anymore. He's not
Yeah,
anymore. And
yeah.
you've got NAF. You give your resources to the people who prove that they deserve it.
Yes. Yeah.
And he just unfortunately is not the guy anymore. So I
He's
really
lost
don't know what to
all his
make of it. Yeah, I
confidence.
really don't know what to
All of
make
his
of it.
confidence is gone. I think realistically, where I'll bring it up on stream now, but like the recent like run of form in events. Let me if this loads. Here we go. you go, events. If you look at some of them, it is like it's pretty dicey. Like Esports World Cup, fair enough. But then Chengdu, which is one of the main ones we're talking about, 0.95, tough, man. Not good. Not good at all. And then 0.76 at Blast Premier Spring. And then obviously at the RMRs, 0.98 didn't qualify as well. I mean, and then these are all open qualifiers. So I don't really care too much about them. It's tough, man. They're just not doing what this team should be doing, right? Like this is or your Kinder individually isn't doing what he should be doing. So for me, they're in a really rough spot. It's tough. I think Scholes, I love Scholes as a player. I think he's so talented. I've loved him from the Pain days. I was so happy when he got signed from Liquid, but he looks very uncomfortable on his CT side, especially when he anchoring a Mirage, brutal. He looks so out of position, always like off the ball. So for me, it's like, what can Naf and Twists do to really, amplify this team? It's such a big ask. But then you look at Furia, and it's like, right, Furia, they've just got rid of their primary IGL. Now they've got Fallen Calling. You've got Cello, who's woefully underperforming, generally speaking. Quesarato, who's still, an incredible rifler, but has just put himself into this like kind of like, you're not going to ever win jail, right? And then Kai, wow, like seriously bad. So as Maui did a really, really good stream, demo reviewing him, and just like the decision making, like it's just one of those things. He's obviously so inexperienced. Like
Yeah, he's
there's
out of his
no two
depth.
ways about it. So out of his depth. This is a panic thing. They just needed a sub. They needed someone to stand in. They've got him, but yeah, wow. Like this is like, we talk about youngsters who come through and they're like young, and then they, their potentials like Decency and No Way are great examples. These youngsters who've maybe had a little bit of time on academy teams, or in No Way's case, like streaming, right? And they come through in the sick. Kai on Fury Academy, ooh, like I don't know, man. Like even we even watched like his like with Maui, like watched like his best game he'd had, like which was like actually funny enough against Imperial, and they beat them 13-11, some like mega comeback. And he got like 24 kills, and I remember zero of them. Like it's like they're so like unimpactful and stuff. So yeah, I'm very worried about him. Like, he could really start to, put up advent numbers. That's how rough he looked. And this is like online domestic Counter-Strike. So yeah, Furia are in flux. This is obviously a very temporary change. I think if Furia was smart, they would they try everything to get Big Azera. Like that'd be like the number one person they have to get.
Yeah,
Get
just
Big Azera.
Fallen's not going to concede the throne, as it were. So
I don't know.
or
Like
even are you
the thing
saying
is,
just get Big Azera and don't let him IGL? Just let him kill
no, he
people.
has to IGL.
Yeah,
He's like
exactly.
he's the best IGL in the region. Like it has
Yeah.
to. But like it also can they afford him, because I think his buyout is all the Brazilian buyouts are absolutely ridiculous. I saw one. Oh, I can't remember who it was. But like some of them are absolutely insane. I mean, obviously, Fallen's was like $600K or $700K.
Yeah.
Like just yeah, nuts, right? For a guy who literally the same like 2 months before getting signed said he wanted to retire next year. But yeah, I don't know. For me, Furia are in a really bad spot. They don't look themselves. I caught a little bit of them not that long ago. They looked all over the place. Obviously, I caught a bit of them. What's it called? Get Rio. That
Yeah.
event was a shocker as well, has to be said. But we caught a bit of it. And Ish, not good. And Liquid, I caught them in the Esports World Cup, and again, not great. So I don't know. I don't really like. It's one of those things. I don't know who wins this. I think Liquid probably win it, but like, kind of like, I don't really care. It's so weird. Like, it's just like I think they both desperately like actually need a break like from events rather than playing events. They need to like
Maybe.
fix their teams. Like,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
both of them
So
need a change.
Furia, I can give that to. I think Liquid for me have got. I'd say most of the pieces. If you can make your Kindar work, Cadian is a good
I don't think they
AWPer.
can
He is
though.
a good IGL. You've got Zeus coaching, one of the
I think he's
legends.
good.
If
I think yeah.
I think the he's obviously done great work with Liquid in the past. The 2019 Liquid, famously of Luminosity and SK, and I think into MIBR. They might have dropped him going into MIBR. I can't quite remember the timeline. I'll get it up for a second here. But yeah, I think they do have the pieces ultimately to make this work. But it just, jeez, was his hair's going crazy. Yeah, okay, so he was in MIBR for a while actually. My bad on that one. But yeah, famously Luminosity SK and then into Liquid. And it was just prior to the 2019 Liquid actually, so they kicked him and then they were sick. So, he started all that I think and did a lot of work with them and has helmed
Yeah.
some great teams in the past. It's difficult though. Coaching in NA is a real tough one. They don't have a lot of depth there, and I think it's also a role that the organizations in particular are not willing to fork loads and loads of money out for.
Yeah.
But I think Liquid have got the pieces. I think they should be able to make this work. I think with these players, with what they are capable of, given their histories, I think they should make playoffs. But I don't know that they
Do you
will.
reckon?
Yeah,
I
if
don't
it
know if
was
they
like
will, man.
everyone comes together at their not necessarily peak, but like
Yeah.
90% of their highest level, then yeah, you've got the pieces here. But it's at this current
Yeah.
time not coming together well enough. So I don't know.
I
It's
think.
therefore it's a tough project because I don't know
Yeah.
that you make moves because they'll all be sat here like, yeah, but your Kindar when I was playing 3 years ago, bearing in mind have all been playing professionally like 5+ years easily, apart from Skulls.
Yeah.
There's enough history here for them to try and wait it out,
I think the run from like not making it to the major through the RMRs, through the Americas RMRs as well, is like, okay, whatever. And they actually lost the Fury in that as well. And then, not making it through that. Obviously the Americas RMR, the format was quite rough because it was like either them or complexity, which obviously was quite tough. And it was like a 3-mapper. It was kind of quite a banging series. And then Blast Showdown where they lost to Saw, and it was like, what the hell is going on here? Then Chengdu, fair enough, beat G2, but then lose to Mao's. It's like a kind of a nothing series, and lose to FaZe, took a map off them, but then FaZe ended up winning the event. So I guess we can give them the caveats, but it's still for me, it's like they beat teams that are like okay, whatever, you know what I mean? Like RMR, they're beating teams like Bestia and Boss, but then I still just think like there's just no like they don't look at the moment like they play like a tier 1 team, and that's why it worries.
Sure,
I think
okay,
in this Furia game, I still think they should be able to beat them. And I do actually want Liquid to do well. I mean, Liquid was actually technically the first team I ever supported. This is back in like the Stewie 2K days. But yeah, I don't know. I watched that whole M80 series, and it was tough, like tough to watch. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. They're in a bit of a weird spot. Let's talk about moving on towards Group D though. We'll move on here for now. So Complexity Para, NIP Heroic are the first ones. I mean, I think Complexity Para sort of writes itself. Para on LAN haven't really proven anything.
yeah, we'll see.
Obviously
They
made
could
it
be one of
through
these
Pro League
huge.
Conference.
Yeah, sorry. They could be one of these dark horse teams, though. I think like they could be
You
a team
reckon?
that you overlook a little bit. Yeah, just in the case of like you have to pay them their respect.
Fair.
And they'll also be a team, I think, of guys, a few young guys here looking to really prove themselves, So I think that you do have to just be a bit careful playing off against them, really. It's a wild mix of teams, a wild mix of cultures. So I think that they could be a very sort of loose, fast, enjoying themselves kind of team. I want to say as
Yeah.
well, if it is a conference qualification, that Bibu and holy hell, Chio Cardao maybe,
It's a
they
name,
surely
innit?
will not have qualified with them
No,
in
they didn't.
conference,
So
right? Yeah,
it
so
was
they're recent
conference.
additions.
It was they
Well, the
had
conference equivalent is like the national qualifier,
yeah.
EPL qualifier, national competition
Yeah,
thing.
wasn't it us who did it? I know
Yeah, I
I
think
did
so.
it.
Like back
It
in
was us who did it.
January,
Yeah. It was like with Damion and
ESL Pro League Season 19 NC Europe qualifier,
National Championships.
national
Yeah.
championship. Yeah.
It was with Damion and I forget the other guy now. I forget the other guy who was in this team. But yeah, not like this team's just kind of average. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um,
MSN was the other guy, by the way.
MSN, that's it. I knew it was like so. I knew it was 3 letters, but my brain just kept saying DGL. It was right in front of
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
I was like, I know it's not DGL. Yeah, Complexity should be light work. I'm actually
Yeah.
really looking forward to Complexity's event. I think
Yeah.
they should make a deep run, and through this group as well. I think they should finish top 2 without a doubt. It's just whether they can actually beat Na'Vi in the groups. I think it'll be between them and Na'Vi. So I think they made light
Yeah,
work of that.
I can
NIP
agree.
Heroic. I think this NIP team, obviously, it's very like new-ish. It's kind of in flux. I'll give NIP a lot of credit though. They've actually been playing online Counter-Strike. So this is the thing, and same with Big, right? Like, I mean, even though I really think this Big team is like, but bang average. I think like NIP play a lot of Counter-Strike, so I actually give them a lot of credit. Like fair play. Like they've actually been trying to like test this team in online tournaments. It's a bit of a weird team though. Blue Phoenix is playing, and obviously right now Rez is out
Yeah,
because he's
he's
got
ill.
some viral infection they were saying. So um they're bringing in ex Casper Sky. I can't remember the exact team he's on. I've cast this guy a bunch of times.
Is this guy Young Ninjas? No,
No, I
that's
swear.
of April 2024, so that can't be
No,
right.
he played on another team.
There's nothing
I've
listed
cast this
on
guy before. It must
HLTV.
be on Wikipedia. Let me hit the Wikipedia real
Also, is
quick.
this guy? So his name is Casper, right?
Yeah.
You know, Casper Sky, or I guess some people say Kaspersky, which is like
Isn't it like
it's like an
it's like
antivirus.
antivirus? Yeah, that's what I was
So my
thinking. Yeah,
guy's
yeah,
just
yeah.
named himself after an antivirus. That is baller as hell. Obviously, it's his own name as well. Like it's
Yeah.
a crossover, but that's pretty funny that he's like just seen Kaspersky. I'm sure it's Kaspersky is the way that you're supposed to say it, but
You reckon?
yeah, I think
This
so.
guy defo played another team. It was like one of those Polish teams, like Honoris or like PGE Torau or one of
Maybe I
them.
mean he's
Like
only 17, so you might be Mandela affecting yourself a little bit.
I'm not. I'm actually 100% sure. Like I know for a fact he played
All
on
right,
one
bloke.
of them.
If you say so. If you say so.
PG Terrell. There we go. PG
Okay.
Terrell.
All
That's
right.
what he played on. Yeah, because I've casted him, and I know I haven't casted Young Ninjas in like yonks.
Hmm.
So yeah, PG Terrell is who he played on. I know actually the reason I know that he was in one of the qualifiers. That's why I'm pretty sure I saw him
Right.
in one
Okay.
of
That's
those.
maybe why it's not
One of the
listed.
open quals.
Yeah.
But they didn't make it that far. I think actually PG Terrell were the team who lost to Viperio, who then qualified to the Blast Paris Major. So or to the RMR. So but yeah, I don't think he was in that one. But yeah, this kid's actually alright. He's pretty talented. He's just he's a rifler. There's no two ways about it. I don't know what he'll do at this event. I think expectations for us for NIP are going to be very, very low,
Yeah.
right? Because you've lost arguably your best player, quote unquote, air quotation
Yeah.
marks. I actually think Maxter's got a lot of talent. This is a guy who should be playing, in my opinion, at the tier 1 level anyway. Wrinkle, I've always loved Wrinkle. I think he's very good. He was in one of my bold predictions videos last year. I think he was in. Very talented AWPer. Definitely deserved the opportunity. He's been at 2 RMRs now and failed to make the major. But this team's, I don't think, going to do all that much. Heroic should have a bit of a whale of a time in that one. It shouldn't be that hard. I think, Nerds and players like that have an absolute field day. Kixan should outcall Alex every day of the week. It should be fine, basically. But I actually do expect big things out of Heroic in a positive note. I think this side, for me, they have a bit of a ceiling, maybe, but Nerds is so talented. Teslas and Shush are still looking actually pretty good in terms of their roles. The only actually caveat I have with Heroic is I think Nicholas as an AWPer, just specifically an AWPer, is actually looks very uncomfortable. As a rifler, I think he's actually pretty good. But as an AWPer, I think he's
Yeah.
like really uncomfortable. And he looks kind of like, yeah, he just doesn't like, he feels like he doesn't really play it right when he's AWPing. When he's rifling, he's like sick. So I don't know. That's the only caveat I have with this Heroic team. And I think Heroic's been, Nicholas has been kind of like an underperforming AWPer for like ages. So
It's true. It is true.
yeah, he is just like, I think he like, Copenhagen Flames tier 2, sick. Stepping into tier 1, yeah, no, like you're not going to be given that much space, that much time.
Yeah, I mean the Copenhagen Flames days, very different time. A bit of a vibes kind of team, to be honest. And they played very well online. Actually, were really inconsistent online at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think Heroic are a good team. They have some nice pieces here. I like Kixon as an IGL. We're all about the young IGLs.
Yeah.
Nertz is obviously a monster. I just don't know. It's the other bits around him. Tessis is stepping up a little bit, but they just don't really have anything that's super exciting for me. Beyond that, it was obviously due to the circumstances, due to the stabby gate. They had to put something together, and Heroic are obviously working as well. I think a lot more on the brand identity. I know that they have a Dota team that's doing quite well at the moment, and just trying to expand and build and They're focusing a lot on community. We know Tom, Sneaky Beaky, shout out one time, who does all the community
For the
stuff,
real
and
ones, my goat.
yeah, of course, lovely guy, and
Yeah.
it's popping off for Heroic in that sense. So I think that they've scrapped a team together. Nikodos is the big one that stands out, but I think that Tessus and Shush were maybe backbone players for the old Heroic, but they weren't
Alright,
necessarily
sure.
super impressive. They weren't the guys that would take over a game.
Mm.
So I don't know. There's a clear ceiling. They should do well here in groups, and we'll see. We'll see. They gave us a decent look at the major, but then
Yeah.
Chengdu was a letdown, if I'm remembering correctly, or am I making? Yeah, they were at Chengdu.
Yes. Yeah.
So a decent look at the major, and I think performing a little bit better than a lot of people expected because they were not really together all that long going into the major cycle. With these new players. It had only really been a couple of months. You could maybe call it 3. But Chengdu much more disappointing there. So I might as well just open it at this stage and go to where they finished off 7th, 8th.
It's
But
not
with
terrible.
it's not
great.
terrible. But with the other teams that were in, I think they would want to place a bit higher than a VP and a Liquid to kind of show that they are capable of throwing it with the big boys, really. So we'll see. Time may lead to improvements for this team, but I don't know. I think that they will forever be like an extremity team, forever be battling for a top 10 slot rather than a best in the world slot as they were at one point in the online era, So
However,
yeah,
in this group, I think in my opinion, I'd say they're the third strongest. Like, I would
I think
probably,
that's fair. That's not controversial. It's a
yeah,
bit of a
I'd probably
shit
say
group
because,
though. To be
yeah, exactly.
honest.
I'd say it goes complexity, Navi, heroic, and then that fourth spot, I think, in my opinion, is between Big and FlyQuest, and
Yeah,
I'd
yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually probably give it to FlyQuest. I think FlyQuest probably need I think they need a change, but they can't, right?
Yeah.
Like unfortunately, I think Alistair needs to be like, not removed. I think he has just looked uh by his standards, not really that great. But there's no other AWPers in the region, and realistically, like what AWPer is going to move from Europe or an NA or like anywhere to Australia? Probably no one. So they don't have. It's slim pickings, right? I would assume most Australian people would agree with me on that one. I do actually like this team though. I think FlyQuest are quite cool. I think they should be able to do okay here. I hope they can do okay here because um obviously they are the kind of representative from their part of the world. We talk about NA getting bad pracs. These guys get it much worse.
Mm.
It's pretty tough, man. It's pretty tough. So they really do try and make the most of it whenever they are, out here basically. But yeah, for me, Navi top this group. I think they should be fine. Complexity second, heroic third, and I'm probably going to give it to FlyQuest as that last chance, like fourth team. I think it'd probably be between them and Big, but I don't know. I keep watching Big and I just keep being like so underwhelmed. There's like Crimbo is quite good. Tabson is quite good, but then like I watched them recently and Searson was like all over the place. Yeah, like actually, in all fairness, the last cast I did of Big, JDC actually farmed, but it was like such a silent farm that I didn't even realize he was farming. He was like just getting like like low key like impact kills, like 2Ks on exits or whatever, and you're like, okay, sick. And at the end, he's like, oh, JDC finished on 26 kills. You're like, oh shit, what the fuck? Like, where did this come from? But yeah, I don't know. I'm not that impressed with Big just yet. I think obviously maybe give them a bit more time, but they do work really hard with this team. They're always boot camping as well, which is I think is a really good thing. But I'm still not sold on them just yet. They're sticking to this like German thing.
Yeah.
They've been trying for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not been working for a long time. When was the last time they were like sick? Like 2019?
2020.
I say
They
2020,
were
like
in
online
the early
era.
online era. They were
Yeah,
they
they were
were
like,
number one in the world with like Zantares
yeah,
and stuff
exactly,
in that
farming. But yeah,
summer.
it was
Yeah.
so fun to watch, and then it's kind of gone downhill since then. Yeah, I think I'm like, as much as I actually quite like Mantu, I think it was the right thing getting rid of him. So they go back to German comms. Like it was like, what's the point being a German team on English comms?
I think he might have spoke German.
Nah, commed in
No?
English.
Okay. All right, fair
Yeah,
enough.
commed in English.
I know that
Um,
Mantu's lineage is like all over the place in it, you know what I mean?
yeah, Polish origin, but like English raised, I think is like what him.
Yeah,
He might
yeah.
have a bit of German in him, but what I got told is like they 100% like commed in English basically, but then I think like when he died, they were like switched to German in one of those classics.
Right. Okay.
Um, uh, but yeah, it's one of those where for me, I don't know what I feel about big. So yeah, that's how I'm
Sure.
gonna go. Mine. I'm gonna go. Yeah, Navi complexity, heroic, and then FlyQuest. Over in Group C as well. I kind of didn't even touch on this, but I'll probably go Mao's number one, Ents number two, but actually kind of awkwardly because of their side of the bracket, they might actually end up going through number three, like through the lowers. I think Mao should go all the way through for the top, and then on the other side, probably Liquid. So like Mao's Ents, Liquid, and then that fourth team, I would probably. Honestly, I'd be tempted to give it to Game Legion. I'm actually quite worried about Furia with Kai. So yeah, I'd actually be tempted to give it Game Legion.
I can go with that. I can agree with that. I don't think that's all that controversial.
Yeah,
Of
Game Legion or
of an order.
Furia. But I want to say Game Legion just maybe because Furia sometimes they just like, don't really show
Yeah.
up occasionally. I get Rio they look quite rough as well with this Kai guy. So we shall see. Should we finish off with a little bit of fantasy?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw some
Go on.
thoughts in the big ring, as it were.
Good.
I think that you talk about like the German committal. I think that's a bit of a weird thing at the moment. They've got to be like the last bastion of it. Obviously, they had a bit of time there where they were
Yeah.
common away in English, but in terms of same nationality, or well, not necessarily same nationality, but teams that don't com in English seems to be the way that it works out. Obviously we've got like
Mm,
American teams, we've got Australian teams and whatnot, but it
yeah.
seems like pretty much everybody is bringing in some international talent where they
Yeah.
can, especially big organizations in Europe. So I feel like that's got to be a move. There's this sort of Rolodex of players as well. Searson's been in and out. JDC never in, but might not have been like their first choice. So it's a weird looking team. It's a shame. Tabson at one point for me was one of the best anchor players in the world, and he's just been maybe a bit wasted.
If he
To
went
be honest,
international, top 10 rifle of all time. I've always
yeah,
said that. I've always threw it out. If he actually left big and went and played at like, I'm gonna say just like not that it was ever gonna happen, but like a phase or like one of them
yeah,
like big
or
international teams from
even
the
like
get go.
Liquid when they're looking
Yeah,
outside, for moves.
genuinely, I think he could have been the top 10 rifle of all time. I think he Case Arato'd himself kind of thing, right? Similar thing to Case Arato. I mean, Case Arato, is ability wise he's a top 20 rifler basically every year, but he just holds himself back by sticking with his region. And he's probably living very comfortably. There's no two ways about it. Comfortable. It's probably like there's no real pressure on him because he always just does his thing. Like he's never letting anybody down. But it gets to a point now. Is it worth it? If you want to win, I don't think you can stay in these national teams. I just don't think you can. I think you have to go international now.
Yeah, definitely feels that way. I'm happy to jump into fantasy. To be
Yeah,
fair, I think that'd be a nice
finish
little thing
off.
to close
Start with
on.
yours.
Yes, I believe I've got mine. This should be mine. Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Yeah, can do, man.
Talk me through it. Talk me through
All
it.
right,
What have we
so
got? Why have we got it?
Alexi B, mainly for the Navi angle. Trying to grab a decent team. I didn't want to go too deep on any one team here.
Sure.
Maybe that is kind of the meta. I feel like the last team did okay. We are obviously casting it, and I don't get super deep into the fantasy at this point. So like boosters and things, I missed out on. There's still actually a
Yeah.
game left to go technically that Mezzy from my team and I believe Spinks from your team still going to be taking part in. But yeah, so Alexi B, I went with the Navi angle ultimately, and you need a bit of an IGL. And I like him. Again, I did this last time. I vote a little bit with my heart. I think he's a baller. I've always thought he was cool. I did think he was a little bit fraudulent, and maybe we'll see in the coming months if that's going to be the case or not. I mean, credit, yeah, the flowers have to be given after a major win for sure. But yeah, just standing up on the desk and helicopter in his jersey, throwing it into the
Love
crowd.
it.
He's a great guy. He's a great guy,
Yeah.
and just very, very cool. Maybe
He
it's because he's
is.
Finnish and he's reserved, but to me, it seems like. To be fair, he's actually got mad drip. I did follow him on Instagram afterwards. I'm getting a bit into my fashion recently, and he knows what's up. He knows how to style himself.
Yeah.
Twists, more of a logical, more of an academic choice.
Yeah.
With the headshot machine role. He's a fragger. He's a monster. Liquid looked decent for me in Chengdu. They started off strong, didn't they, in the groups?
It did.
Made it
G2
through.
and they beat G2 in the best of 3, and they beat somebody else in the best of 1 to
Yeah.
start.
But I think were they one of the first teams to get locked in for playoffs? I think something like that.
I think so. And then and then they
And
played
they
against Mouse,
didn't.
lost 2-0, and then lost FaZe
Yeah,
2-1.
yeah, they didn't make it to the the semi skip,
Yeah.
as it were.
But both those are very good teams, right? They're like 2 top
Yeah.
5 teams, basically. So it's actually respectable teams to lose to.
For sure. So I think Liquid as a whole might struggle here. There's bits and pieces. Twist was a big part of why they did well at Chengdu. So, you know, pick him up, and I think they should still make it through their group there. Nikodos is the main AWP. It's kind of a monetary thing. You got to get a bit of an AWPer in there. I actually, on my last team, didn't go for an AWPer, but I think with this one, you sort of have to farm it a bit. I do believe the meta, and we did talk about this a little bit, actually isn't to give the main AWP tag, because, like...
Yeah. It seems to hit really
yeah,
low.
they don't really activate it very much. I think the KPR with an AWP is actually quite high, especially in CS2, where there's a few less rounds to get that done in. But whatever, get Nikodos in there, AWPer. Hopefully he'll deliver, but we'll see. Maybe his numbers will just be good because Heroic do well. Then the noob, it's got to be somebody. Comes
Hopefully
in as Nickelback. Yeah, hopefully. Nah, but you know, it's a bit savage of a role to give. Nickelback was actually bare cheap. I think maybe because the team itself is not going to do that well. But he was like, you know, 170, the lowest number. We had a little look alongside the PZ guy from Bad News Kangaroos. So that felt quite cheap to me. And then it allowed, ultimately, it's a big facilitation. You know, 2 IGLs in the same team is maybe a little bit wacky, but, you know, 4s might make a run. You never know. But it's a big facilitate for Jim Fat. And it is Jim, as far as I'm aware. We've gone over... what did I watch? Snake and Banter with is it Robu Johnson?
I know who you
mean.
Yeah.
He's like Finnish commentator, Finnish expert, done a few of the Elisa lands and stuff like that.
In the he's like the Finnish caster.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
lovely guy. Got a great following on the YouTubes and all that sort of stuff. So do forgive me for not remembering his second name. I want to say it is Johnson, which feels a little wild as a finisher. But anyway, we're not talking about him. He confirmed on Snake and Banter that Finnish people would say Jim Fat. Maybe a little bit more like Jim Fat, you know, like a bit of an accent on it. But he also is a proponent of just calling him Jimmy, which is a little nickname that some of the commentators, particularly Harry, have given. But he is gaming. Mouse should make a deep run. And this guy on the rifle, for me, if he carries on, he's like top 3 rifle of the year, probably top 5 player of the year, if he carries on playing like this. So
averaging like nearly a 1.2 in like big events, like it's like just in general, but obviously only really plays big events. It's actually crazy how consistently like good he's been.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to get him in, and hopefully he delivers alongside the rest of Mouse. But again, Pro League, as we've seen, you never really know. All right, what about you, man?
I'll move on to mine. So I started mine with basically just having to get Nerds in. I love Nerds. I always want him in. I just think he's very, very solid. I didn't want to give him this because he doesn't do it as much. But the thing he activates most on was entry fragging. But as a lurker, you're like, okay, like he doesn't always like entry, but I guess he just lurks and sometimes he must get like a lot of
the
early
first
kills.
kill,
the first kill. You know what I mean? So for me, Nerds get in. Xerxes was actually quite cheap. And I think Xerxes is a very solid player. I just think he's always like, maybe, you know, Yimfa outshines him in a lot of instances, but I think he's actually just very, very solid. I think Maus should go through like no bother. I think in their group, it feels so easy for them to go through. So I wanted to put like a lot of like reliance on Maus. Hence why I also went Shuhei as well, put him on leader. I don't think they'll lose in my mind. I just think they're just so solid. They're so reliable time after time. And this is a Mouse side that basically they make it as deep as FaZe go and then lose to FaZe. If it isn't for FaZe, they keep going. That's as simple as that. Like if FaZe aren't there, Mouse seem to be okay. It's basically how it goes. And I just think they're just really good. So yeah, Xerxes, eco-friendly was actually the one he activates most on. I might be tempted to change that and put him on like CT. Because I think he has pretty decent CT roles.
Can't change it now, mate. It's on record.
It's true.
Can't be making no changes, pal.
I'll keep it on eco-friendly. I'll keep it on eco-friendly. Why not? Why not? I feel like that actually doesn't activate that much. If you look at it, it says like 2844 is what it says, like activations of big to small.
I don't know what the
But
meta
then
is. I don't know if you should focus big activations or small
or small activations.
activations
Because I was
or
thinking
a
about putting on support,
balance.
right? Which is 10% big activation, but 62% small.
Hmm.
So at least like a small one's pretty good. But then defenders, when I was on about 2131, it feels like relatively like okay. It's weird, man. I don't know what's like the best way to go about it. But maybe I do go support because I feel like at least in my mind that's a role that I can understand. As someone who's not really like that big of a I'm not really like a fantasy person that much. I don't really do boosters. I just pick the team and like enjoy seeing how well I did. I did okay in groups A and B. I got like top 22% or something with no boosters. So I'll take that all day. I had like 2 guys have like 100 points. We'll take it. But yeah, I'm actually gonna change it to support just for the sake of like it's a role that makes sense to me. He throws a lot of supporting util.
Fair enough.
He allows Yimfat to get active. I don't really know eco-friendly like how that activates. Is it just maybe using an SMG? Or is it just when he gets kills against pistols? I don't know, man. I don't know how it works. But so support makes more sense in my mind. Then I've gone for wonderful, and this is what we were talking about the activation. Again, another thing don't really know about. I put wonderful on attacker here, not on main orb, even though obviously he is
Yeah,
the primary
you might be
orb.
right.
I don't know how this works. So on attacker, 40% activation big, 42% activation small. On AWP, 15 activation big, 62% small. So I don't know whether the play here is like guarantee trying to get as much like small, just consistent small
Yeah, yeah.
activations here, or if it's trying to push for the big ones. I don't know, but essentially regardless, attacker feels like quite good. It's based on his T side rating. Navi a very decent T size, generally speaking. And he's also just like a very good player. And then even if he does get kills with the AWP as well, on the T side, it helps towards that activation. So for me, I'm just gonna go attacker here because it feels like it's like kind of like playing the best of both, 40% for both. And then of course the last one, like you said, Nickelback, put him on noob. He's the cheapest one. It was him or PZ, and I think I had 2 grand spare. The only change I probably would have made is potentially with that 2 grand spare is like someone else's assertion. But then I was like, actually, I think Miles should go flawless through the groups here. So I'm just going to play off the back of hoping they don't lose, and I should be fine. So a lot of this comes down to I think Navi should win their group. Wonderful should do well. I think Miles will win their group. Miles do well. And then also, I think Heroic will make it through. But judging on where they are, they might actually have to go into the third rung, like the mid bracket, I
Yeah,
think, or whatever
yeah.
it's called, to do it. And then Nickelback, it was him or PZ. Like we said, Fours can maybe scrape a win. They could beat Monty. They could, you know, Smoothie pop off, but he doesn't really get that many kills, bless him, Nickelback. He's not really there for the numbers. So yeah, that's mine. I did okay in groups A and B without any boosters. So I think maybe, if I was like in a league with a bunch of people, I would like take it a
Yeah,
bit
of
more
course,
seriously.
of
You know what I
course.
mean? But
Yeah.
like I until I understand what's going on, I'm not really gonna take it that seriously. Until I feel a need to, basically. Um
Sure.
yeah, but there we go. I think that's it. More or less done and dusted. Groups C and D start on Tuesday. We'll be on the B stream for at least basically the first game every day, and then every other day the first and second game. So
Yeah.
come catch us on the B stream. While you're doing your work, I know you're not actually going to be working. Put on your second monitor. You want to come support the boys. We'll be there 12:30 B stream every single day starting. And then every other day, also the second game as well. So you're gonna come join us. Come join us. Should be a good time. But any final words, Harp, before we call it?
No.
Nice and easy. Thank you for joining us, people. Always a pleasure. And until next time, I'll see you soon. Take care.